Which party violated the one country, two system principle? Hong Kong or Beijing? I'm going to talk about this in this video. So how did the Hong Kong protests start? Watch this video and you'll find who are the ones that incited the unfounded fear of the proposed anti-extradition bill.
And now we are so pleased to have with us just barely in from Hong Kong, two of the territory's legislators and leaders of its civic party, the Honorable Dennis Kwok and the Honorable Alvin Yeung. You should have their full bios, but both of them have been actively involved in the debates over the proposed changes to Hong Kong's law that seeded the protests. They are long-time legislators, and they're among the best people in the world to help us understand what's been happening in Hong Kong over the past couple of months. So please join me in welcoming them to Asia Society.
Yes, it's people like this American woman, Susan Jakes, and certain Hong Kong politicians who are the brains behind the Hong Kong political unrest. If you watch the video, you see for yourself that she said it herself, and apparently she's very proud of the fact that she held a panel putting China in bad light in May, and then the protests started in June. Americans have been complaining about Russian interference in their elections. What are they doing in Hong Kong? They are interfering without even hiding it.
So at the beginning of May, and many of you may have been here for this, I moderated a panel right on this stage with the founding chairman of Hong Kong's Democratic Party, Martin Lee, the young activist and elected then deposed legislator Nathan Law, and a longtime journalist and press freedom advocate Ma Ting, and the subject was Beijing's relationship with Hong Kong. And I introduced that panel by saying that Hong Kong then was embroiled in what seemed to be a sort of peak moment of fierce political contestation over proposed changes to its laws on the extradition of fugitives. That was before 1 million Hong Kong people took to the streets to protest those laws. That was before 2 million people took to the streets to protest that legislation, before the storming and defacing of LegCo, where you both work.
This is what she refers to as storming into the LegCo building. Plotting to this.
Before the erection of Lenin walls by the protesters, which tie their movement to anti-communist demonstrations in Prague in 1980, before they gathered to sing songs from Les Miserables that linked them to the anti-monarchists of France in the 1830s.
It makes me laugh that this woman mentions the Lenin Wall and that were erected by the Hong Kong protesters. So ironic that these protesters erected the Lenin Wall. Actually, the thoughts that John Lennon has expressed in his famous song "Imagine," are actually in line with what the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government have been fighting for the people. So, which means that what these protesters want are actually what the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government want to give to the Chinese people. What an irony. It's also funny that these protesters identify themselves with the people in the La Miserable of France. Exactly who caused their misery in Hong Kong? Hong Kong is Hong Kong today. Hong Kong's economy is bad today is because the Hong Kong economy in the last 20 years has been controlled by 5 rich families in Hong Kong. A lot of scholars and researchers have been talking about this, and you can just go on the internet and do a search, and you will find plenty of materials to shine light on the causes for these people's misery.
Before the riot police and the tear gas, but before the shutdown of the airport that almost kept you from coming here.
It really amazes me that this woman talks about the shutdown of the airport as if it's the government's fault. I'll show you some video tips, and so you can see for yourself why the airport has to be shut down. This is what's happening to passengers at the airport. Look at the protesters. Are they peaceful? Look at what they're doing to the passengers. Let's watch another video tip. Post it on Twitter. This is what happened to a tourist from mainland China. They beat him up and they searched for his paper and all that. This is just so wrong. The guy ended up unconscious, and all the protesters, and they got hold of his papers, and it turned out that he was not what they suspected. They thought he was an undercover policeman, but he was not. Let's watch another video clip of an elderly man being harassed at the airport. They were trying to force their political view on the elderly person. The elderly man wasn't interested in what they had to say or what they had to show them. So he just brushed them aside. And this is what happened when you say no to these people. They sank so low that they stuck a piece of yellow paper on the back of the elderly, and they wrote something derogative on that piece of paper. Elderly, see that young guy was blocking the way of the elderly, and then the elderly guy kind of pushed him a little bit. And then he fell onto the ground. And then later on, he claimed that the elderly person hit him. Can you believe it? This is, how they have been bullied by the elderly person. Can you believe it? These people are downright liars. Look how many of them are surrounding just one person.
Before Beijing's liaison office in Hong Kong called the actions of the protesters atrocities and the activists no different to terrorists, and before the U.S. president warned that PRC troops were massing at Hong Kong's border.
Of course, the Chinese government is always wrong. This woman is always right. Yes, those are the peaceful protesters that this woman is like supporting. And she's condemning everyone else, the government, Chinese government, Hong Kong government, Hong Kong police. just, this is what she's like, okay, I have no words. I'm speechless, I'll let her to embarrass herself. Talking about the Chinese troops are amassing around the uh, Hong Kong and Shenzhen border. Of course, these people, like, are clearly starting a political coup. They're waving foreign flags and they want to be, Hong Kong, not China. China has to prepare just in case that they want to invade or move over to Shenzhen and start rioting in Shenzhen. Of course, China has to be prepared. What's wrong with that? Any government would have done the same thing. I can't believe this woman. She is so prejudiced and she is like,
or called the protest riots, or said he hoped the Hong Kong thing works out for everybody. So it feels like we're in just a completely different world from 3 months ago. And I wonder if I could start by asking each of you to give us your sense for what these 3 months have been like for you and what you think it's most important to pay attention to and trying to understand what's happening.
Yeah, let him tell you what's happening. Okay, let's see what he's going to show you.
For the man, he was shot in the eye on the 12th of June. This is what's happening, and we, the Hong Kong people...
Yes, that's what they want to show you. I'll show you something else. Something that they don't want to show you. This is Hong Kong protesters waving American flag. Policeman's fingertip got bitten off by a protester. Protesters worshipping a white, attacking the Legislative Council building, setting fire and push it to the police, waving British flag, more fire. If you watch the whole video of the Asians posted by the Asian Society, you'll find that they were talking about the Chinese government banning books or imprisoning Hong Kong booksellers. The whole thing about the Chinese government banning books and imprisoning booksellers are just some lies that could fool the people who do not know much about China. I have not found any compelling evidences of these allegations to be true. These people could publish their books overseas if they want to and see if anyone is buying them. The family of the so-called missing booksellers can sue the Chinese government in court. After all, the Hong Kong courts are still dominated by white people, white judges, or judges that are foreign citizens. The Hong Kong political activists have so far successfully blocked every new legislation that the Hong Kong government has attempted to pass. All these laws would not affect any political freedom in Hong Kong and are all perfectly in line with the basic law and the one country, two system principle. The problem lies with the Hong Kong separatists. These people only uphold the two system part, but not the one country part of the principle. They are the ones who have never respected the principle from the start. They are cherry picking, and their cherry picking has produced all these confused and manipulated Hong Kong youths, acting willfully and childishly in front of the whole world. They bullied the former executive chief Dong Qihua and blocked his good policy proposals. and caused all the economic problems that these young people are not happy about. These people are the ones who are acting out the thieves calling catching thieves get out of trouble trick. It goes without saying that these Hong Kong politicians treat Hong Kong as a U.S. subunit and regarded themselves as Americans rather than Chinese. These are the leaders of those who claim they are Hong Kongers, not Chinese. The whole world knows that Hong Kong is a part of China. So Hong Kongers are people from the Chinese territory Hong Kong, just like New Yorkers and Californians are Americans. Hong Kongers are Chinese. The fact that these people are saying that they are not Chinese, which obviously means that their protests are activities of a political coup. This means that they are not only rioting, but also committing treason against China. They are traitors from China. They don't want one country anymore. They want two countries. Now you see, it is plainly obvious who is violating the one country, two system principle. Not the Beijing government, but these Hong Kong traitors and separatists. Yes, they are traitors by the American standard, not to mention the Chinese standard. The younger generation Hong Kong politicians have been engaging in activities that violating the one country, two system principle all along. A few years ago, several legislative council members elect openly showed disrespect and contempt to the very system that they sought office for. This is a solid evidence of these people violating the principle of one country, two system. If they did not believe in the system, why did they run for the public office in Hong Kong? How were they elected in the first place? It makes you wonder. Did they lie when they were campaigning? If the Beijing government was interfering in the Hong Kong democratic election, why would they allow these people to be elected? Now you see that the Beijing government has done nothing to stop the democratization of Hong Kong. Hong Kongers have been doing all the damages themselves. They betrayed the trust of Beijing and the 1.4 billion mainland Chinese. The Chinese people treated these Hong Kongers as brothers and sisters, but what do these people do? They stab the Chinese people in the back and then right in the heart. These people are lousy liars and the masterminds behind all the riots in Hong Kong. However, some Americans like Susan Jakes are manipulating the American public by saying that they are the best. Of course they are the best. They are the best to be manipulated by her for her own hidden agenda and her obviously dangerously skewed political views. Wow, these two liars are showing two pictures of two injured protesters. It is no secret that the Hong Kong police had to use common tactics that are used everywhere in the world by police, including in the USA and the UK, to keep law and order. These are not evidences for police brutality. If they are, then everything the police do can be called police brutality. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? They are entitled to use these as evidence in court. Who are they to convict the police just with those pictures? They are now playing judges? These two are acting like clowns. If these are the best people in Hong Kong, then Hong Kong is doomed. Susan Jakes can keep these two for the U.S. in her own ludicrous dreams. I'm sure American people don't want these two in America, ever. Hong Kong legislators openly seek advice from foreign government during the demonstration is another evidence that it is Hong Kong that has violated the one country, two system principle. Hong Kong protesters shouting, "I am a Hong Konger, not Chinese," is another evidence. The lack of national pride in these Hong Kong politicians, Hong Kong protesters, and their financiers' patrons is so sad and tragic that it makes healthy-minded people cringe. If any American acted like that, I'm sure all the regular Americans would be avoiding them like plague, and the U.S. government would be sending them to jail. The reverse racism and arrogance that these Hong Kongers have shown towards mainland Chinese are even more repugnant. Seriously, these people need mental health education.